ॐ ज्ञानं तिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन
Tasma
मयि श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददति स्वापदन्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपां साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Okay. So, very nice to see all of you. These instructions are so nice, aren't they? These verses and texts. Um, Even I was, thinking about these since the last week, and they're so valuable for all of us. I was actually reading them with my children, and they were remembering the six positive items, um, the six things that help bhakti, the six things that don't help bhakti. So yes, Balaram is here. He was also doing it. So we'll recite this prayer to the six Goswamis. I was just listening to a class where it said that Prabhupada said that by reciting these six prayers to the six Goswamis, it helps us control our senses. So when our mind and senses agitate us, if we recite this, it helps us control the senses. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuno Sadharma Sangstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyao Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mattaliko Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghujugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they're honored all over the three worlds, and they're worth taking shelter of, because they're absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental, loving service of Radha and Krishna. So this is our prayer to Rupa Goswami, who is the author of Nectar of Instruction, as we were reading in Nectar of Devotion also, who summarized the 11,000 verses that he wrote into 11 verses. And so today we are starting with verse 4, this section from 4 to 6. The theme of this section is to strive to function on the spiritual level rather than on the bodily level. And how do we strive to do that? Through sadhu sangha. Sadhu sangha is essential for spiritual advancement, but what are the best ways for sadhu sangha? So last few classes, we discussed the 3 verses that are essential for the practice of bhakti. The first verse were the things to control. Vacho vegam, manasakrodha vegam, jivva vegam, udarapasta vegam. So those were the 6 things that we must control if we want to make advancement in spiritual life. Then the second verse was 6 things that slow our progress down. Over-endeavoring, overeating, talking too much, talking nonsense, not talking too much, but talking nonsense, prajalpa, striving after material things, which are very difficult to achieve, and associating with worldly-minded people. So these were different items that we had to avoid. Then we talked about 6 things that help us in our devotional. And the 6 things that help us in our devotional practice are enthusiasm, determination, patience, again, not associating with worldly-minded persons. And we discussed this all in detail. What does association mean? What does it not mean? And now, but the focus in those was don't associate with worldly-minded people. And he repeated that even though he wrote 11,000 verses, he summarized them in 11 verses, only 11 verses. He repeated that point of jana sangha, of giving up bad association twice. And now in these verses, he's speaking about accepting association and understanding what are the different levels of association. So the first verse of this section, text 4, is about accepting association. So what does it mean to associate with people, right? This was a big question last time. People said, well, what does it mean not to associate? Well, this tells us what does it mean to associate? What is true association? And thus one can, by the process of simple logic and negation, can understand, well, what does it mean not to associate? If I'm doing these things, then I'm associating. So being with someone but not doing these 6 things is not associating. Hopefully, it's a way of associating less. And we had discussed that in detail, how a fly sits on our body. It's touching our body, but we're not associating with it. And why is we not associating with it? Because we're not doing these 6 things. But on the other hand, if we are with someone and even they're far away, if we're engaging in these activities, we are associating with them. So these are the 6 things we should do with devotees. And we should reduce this with non-devotees so that we don't become influenced by their habits and thoughts. So text 4. Dadati pratigrihnati guhyam akhyati pritchati bhungte bhojayate chaiva shadvidham priti lakshanam. Translation: offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad, and offering prasad are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that not even in devotional circles, but even in business circles, this is the way how relationships are made. If someone actually wants to make relationships, now there's all of these very highfalutin books on relationship building, how to win friends, how to, this and that. All of that is given by Rupa Goswami in one verse. And any successful CEO, business person will tell you that this is exactly what you need to do if you want to connect with people. And there's many executives here on this call who can confirm this. And I don't want to single anyone out, but I'm sure you can. Please comment if you find this very true. Offering gifts and charity. So the dati. These are the 6 loving exchanges. These are the 6 loving, and in spiritual life, these are the exchanges that bring us closer to Krishna. So one time someone asked Prabhupada, how do we know that we are advancing? And we know how we are advancing by the relationships that we develop among devotees. We can know our advancement by how our relationship with Krishna kind of reflects in our relationships with the devotees. Of course, that doesn't mean that everyone may agree with us. Like Srila Prabhupada, none of his godbrothers supported him, but he was very, very he was very but he was very expert at they were not supporting him, but if he met with them, or if he met with a devotee, he had very wonderful relationships with all the devotees. And this is because his heart was very pure. So this naturally took place. And he was very expert at these loving exchanges. So the first one is Dadati, offering charitable gifts. When we offer charitable gifts, then we are offering something to a devotee, and in this way, receiving their blessings. Especially, we give something nice to an advanced devotee, they become so pleased. Immediately, they want to reciprocate. And when they reciprocate, then we can't say no to everything. If we want a loving exchange, we must also accept. Pratigrinati, accepting charitable gifts. Accepting gifts and appreciating other people's offerings is also a big part. Just like some people, we see that they want to give, but um, they don't want to accept if someone else is offering them, and a gesture of love or service or any form of appreciation. Then appreciation is also a gift, right? They say, oh, no, 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 and they just ignore it. That's nice, that's humility, but at the same time, we should also accept and appreciate what others are offering to us, right? Just like one time a disciple was serving his spiritual master, and then his spiritual master then gave a gift and some nice instructions in return. And the disciple was, no, no, Guru Maharaj, no, 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 this is not nice, no, no. And then the spiritual master responded that I'm making a nice cake for you, right? I put the icing, the strawberries, all these things. But now when I'm giving it to you, you are making a mess of it, right? When I'm offering it to you, then you're not accepting it with a grateful heart. So gratitude also means that we accept the gifts that our superiors give to us. We, this is why, gratitude is the beginning of bhakti. Because without being grateful, what can we gain? And gratitude is also the beginning of humility, because gratitude means that we feel that we also need something and we also needed something, right? If we just feel I am just here to give, I am here like the Jesus to help all those around me. That's very nice. It's selfless. But simultaneously, we should have the consciousness that I also need. And I also am a fortunate person if a devotee is giving me something. And not that then if they're giving us $100, we accept it. No, we should say, no, no, please don't give me, we don't want to take things materially, but we want to take their spiritual gifts. And their spiritual gifts may come in the form of material gifts, so to say. Material, it may manifest materially, but those gifts are given through the heart. They're not a matter of, an exchange of money. So dadati and pratigrinati, offering gifts and accepting gifts. And Srila Prabhupada gives such a nice purport on these points. And I'm just drawing from the purport. So please do read this when you go back before doing your homework. The third one is guhyam akyati, discussing confidential topics, revealing one's mind. So guhyam akyati, discussing guhyam akyati. So guhyam, the specific word here is confidential. So revealing one's mind confidentially. Guhyam akyati. So sharing confidentially, and prichati, inquiring confidentially. And a key word here is confidential. But confidentially, we are revealing and also hearing. So talks between devotees are sometimes meant for the whole world, like we see Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. They are speaking and hearing for the whole world. But at other times, they are meant to be done confidentially. And that breaking that confidentially is breaking culture. It's breaking the loving exchange. Someone is sharing with you confidentially, and pretty soon they find out that half the temple knows, what you shared with them. Then how will the friendship remain? So friendship means, again, these are devotional qualities, but we also find this as qualities in this world. So guhyam akyati prichati bhungte, honoring prasad, and bhojayate, serving prasad. Bhungte bhojayate chaiva. So 90% of all, business exchanges are done where? They're done on the dining table, right? They're not actually done in the offices and, in the meeting halls. Maybe now in the digital world a little bit, but all the exchanges happen over food. And by offering food and receiving food, that is how the hearts tie together. And this is why we had mentioned that we can be with non-devotees, we must do our service, we must do our work. But when Rupa Goswami says, don't associate with non-devotees, these are the 6 things that he means. Most importantly, food, right? We try to avoid eating out with them because it's through food that all the karmic vasanas get shared. We are associating with the cook, we are associating with the servers, and we're associating with the person we're eating with. What goes in comes out. We are made of what we eat. So honoring prasad, honoring food and serving food, these should be done in the homes of devotees, among devotees. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed this by his personal example when he instructed Raghunath Das Goswami to arrange prasadam for all the devotees. And then he personally appeared and he personally served all the devotees. You read through the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and most of the pastimes, almost as many as the pastimes of chanting and dancing, it's about the Lord accepting and serving prasadam. At the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Raghava Pandit, so many examples, Raghunath Das Goswami. It's the loving exchanges between the devotees were shared through the course of prasadam. And these are the loving exchanges by which we attract people to Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said, we are the kitchen religion. So why? Because it's the root of the loving exchange. Similarly, confidentially, right? We don't reveal our heart confidentially to people who are not qualified to carry it. We gave the example last time of the alligator and the monkey, right? And the monkey who left his heart on the top of the tree. And so because he didn't bring his heart with him, the alligator wouldn't eat him. And then he went onto the tree and saved himself because his heart was up there. So in the same way, the devotees, they only give their heart to other devotees, share it confidentially. The confidential talks take place there. So they don't get entangled. They don't get entangled with this world. And of course, the first one, of course, in the business world, with even non-devotees, we may need to give some gifts as a way of exchange. But as you mentioned, the real gifts are being exchanged amongst devotees. So these are the 6 loving exchanges. Anyone who practices these loving exchanges will have wonderful relationships with devotees. Even if a devotee is very hard to deal with, if we practice these things, they will soften towards us, no matter how difficult the relationship is. Of course, sometimes there's some, you could say, mental, um, you could say mental uh, uh, gap there, where someone is, they're mentally disturbed, and you invite them, you do anything, they just don't accept. Um, but hopefully, if you try these, meaning that if they don't even agree to engage in these 6 things, then what can you do? But if they're willing to engage in these 6 items, then that relationship can progress. And then even then, if they don't respond, again, what can you do? But from our side, this guidance is given in the Nectar of Instruction by Rupa Goswami, that if we are thinking, how can I improve my relationship with devotees, then we can try these 6 things. Not just try, we must engage in these 6 things. So Prabhupada explains this in the purport, that this is how the Krishna consciousness movement is spread, by offering and accepting gifts in charity. What is that? Distributing the holy names, giving the gift of the name. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says this, right? The greatest treasure, the gift, is the holy name of Krishna. Transcendental literatures, book distribution, it's giving them the gift of knowledge, most important. And prasadam. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges between devotees. Prabhupada is saying, this movement has been established to facilitate. Why do we need a movement? So many people say, right, that I'm a spiritual person, not a religious person. Why do I need this movement? Prabhupada says that we must do this by these 6. The institution is needed for these 6 loving exchanges. We must also accept these gifts to make spiritual advancement. Sorry. This society was started single-handedly, but because people are coming forward and dealing with the give and take policy, the society is now expanding all over the world. Prabhupada is showing how the society expanded. This society was started single-handedly. He was alone. But he engaged these people. The people are coming forward and dealing with a give and take policy. Now, normally, um, um, now normally, give and take is considered a bad thing. Oh, why should I give and take? Nobody say no. By the give and take policy, we have to give something, we have to take something. Otherwise, it doesn't sustain. Everyone has this nature. We offer something, and that offering itself is satisfying. Serving is satisfying. And in the same way, if we are serving others, we must also accept their gifts, their prasadam, their service. The society is now expanding all over the world. And Prabhupada makes the point that we must accept these gifts to make spiritual advancement. We are not powerful enough to enchant the lower animals, such as tigers, snakes, cats, and dogs, or entice them to dance. But by chanting the holy names of the Lord, we can actually convert many people throughout the world to Krishna consciousness. Contributing or distributing the holy names of the Lord is a sublime example of contributing or giving charity, the Dadhati principle. By the same token, one must also follow the Pratigrinati principle and be willing and ready to receive the transcendental gift. So this is uh, so we need it for our spiritual advancement. That's a Pratigrinati principle. And the Dadati principle, the giving principle, is distribute Krishna consciousness all over the world, following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhupada further writes, these are, gems from the verse, and this is why we are reading them here. It's a very long purport, as each verse has. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to facilitate the 6 kinds of loving exchanges between devotees. This society was started single-handedly, but because people are coming forward and dealing with a give and take policy, the society is now expanding all over the world. We are glad that people are donating very liberally to the development of the society's activities. And people are also eagerly accepting whatever humble contribution we are giving them in the shape of books and magazines, dealing strictly with the subject matter of Krishna consciousness. 1 minute. We sometimes hold Hare Krishna festivals and invite life members and friends to participate in the feasting by accepting prasad. Although most of our members come from the higher rungs of society, they nonetheless come and take whatever little prasad we are able to offer them. Sometimes the members and supporters inquire very confidentially about the methods of performing devotional service, and we try to explain this. In this way, our society is successfully spreading all over the world. And the intelligentsia of all countries is gradually appreciating our Krishna conscious activities. The life of the Krishna conscious society is nourished, but the life of the Krishna conscious society is nourished by these 6 types of loving exchange among the members. Therefore, people must be given the chance to associate with devotees of ISKCON, because simply by reciprocating in the 6 ways mentioned above, an ordinary man can fully revive his dormant Krishna consciousness. So, imagine how important each of these verses are. Prabhupada is saying that the whole movement is spreading. All the movements, all the Hare Krishna movement's activities are taking place on the basis of this verse. Right? Festivals, books, prasadam, small groups of bhakti vrikshas, large festivals, Sunday feast. These are all to increase loving exchanges. And when there are loving exchanges in Krishna consciousness, then people will become devotees. So Prabhupada set up all of these things as means by which we are offering service, right? The devotees work so hard to cook prasadam. It's not easy. And who does it outside in the world? And then they distribute this prasadam freely, widely, without reservation. And being touched by that love, by that gesture, people become devotees. Being touched by the gift of knowledge through books, people become devotees. Festivals, monthly Sankirtan festivals, uh, outdoor festivals, all of these festivals were done by the Goswamis. Narottam Das Thakur did so many festivals, and they showed by example that these festivals are, they actually instructed Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Pandit, and Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Pandit, and and Shamananda Pandit. They were instructed by the Goswamis to organize very large festivals. So we have non-stop festivals in our movement. Why? Because there we exchange these gifts, food, our thoughts. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says these festivals are the mother of devotion. In his song Shuddha Bhakata Charanarenu, he says this. So we must accept the gifts of this movement. And similarly, we must also give to this movement. Prabhupada says people are donating very liberally. Lord Chaitanya in Chaitanya Bhagavat says that the most important service for householders is charity. Right? We shouldn't feel that we can cheat the Lord. Lord Chaitanya, who is the Acharya of this age, who is always chanting and dancing, who's telling us just chant the holy name of Krishna. He is telling us. So when we think, well, he said just chant, but no, he's telling us that for the householders, because they're earning, they must support the chanting of the holy name of Krishna, the movement that's spreading that holy name by offering charity. So charity is very important, and that's the loving exchange. That the householders are very busy. They have jobs and all these things, and they cannot read scriptures so much, right? They don't have time to absorb themselves in Shastra, although some do. But most of us, it's just like we get an hour or two free in the day. Somehow we squeeze something in. We can't absorb ourselves. So whatever we are doing, which is earning money, if we have more of it, we offer it to the Sankirtan movement. And we give that gift. In exchange, the pure devotees of the Lord, the Paramahansas, is described. They, in exchange, the Paramahansa devotees will give us Krishna Bhakti, will give us Prema Bhakti. Because they're giving what they have. Right? When we give what we have, then they give what they have. And we're just reading yesterday, a few days ago or 2 days ago, I was reading that how the follower can experience the same perfection as he who he follows, or she she follows. Right? So when we serve a devotee, an advanced devotee, they're experiencing a certain emotion with Krishna, a certain ecstasy, emotion, life of service with Krishna. If we follow them, if we are humbly serving them, we will experience that same ecstasy. This was the place we're reading is one of Shivram Maharaj's books. He has these amazing books that are being, available in so many places. In the first book, of Raghunath Das Goswami's Vilapa Kusumanjali, the first text, he speaks to Rupa Goswami in his eternal Swarupa. Very interesting. This is very amazing, actually. I found it to be. And he's speaking to Rupa Goswami, who is a Manjari, and he's a Manjari. He's Rati Manjari, and Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari. And he is saying that how is it that your lips are bitten? This is, of course, very confidential. Your lips are bitten. It seems like your lover has bitten your lips. Now, the lover refers to Krishna, right? Because they're speaking about Krishna. Now, Rupa Goswami is a Manjari. He doesn't he doesn't interact directly with Krishna. He only serves the gopis, headed by Srimati Radharani. So, in the commentary, it's explained how Rupa Goswami and the Manjaris, their service to Srimati Radharani is so intense. Their connection and their attachment and their service is so close and so intense that though they're not interacting with Krishna, they get the same experience and mood and feelings as Srimati Radharani does. Because their life and soul is Srimati Radharani. They don't even want to be with Krishna without Srimati Radharani. And so when Krishna bit Srimati Radharani's lip in loving exchange, only Radha and Krishna, right? This is their highest level of spiritual emotion. When Krishna bit Srimati Radharani's lip, then automatically Rupa Goswami, his lip was also bitten. Because he experienced in facilitating that pastime of Radha and Krishna meeting and serving them, the intensity was so great that he was actually experiencing the same experience that Srimati Radharani was having with Krishna. And this is why in one very song, in the purport to the song, Prabhupada writes that the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, the goal of the Krishna consciousness movement is that we attain love for Krishna with the same feeling as the gopis of Vrindavan, in the same mood and the same feeling. And someone may say, how is that possible? I mean, they're the gopis. Is this too much thinking of oneself? It's too much pride that I can even think in this way. This is how it's possible, right? We never aspire, we can never become the eternally liberated gopis who are the inner circle of Krishna's gopis. They're actually higher than normal jivas. They're part of his eternal Hladini Shakti. They cannot fall in this material world. But then how can we have that same experience? By serving them. Then we have that same experience. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that his goal in life and the process that he's giving all of us is Gopi Bharata Padakamalyo, or Das Das Anudas, to become the servant of the servant of the servant of the gopis, which Prabhupada translates as the servant of the gopis 1,000 times removed. Why is the process of servant of the servant? Because when we become the servant of the servant, then as the servant of the servant, we experience the same emotions that those above us in the line are experiencing. That same we will get. And this is how Krishna consciousness is all encompassing. That we don't have to be in position 1. Even in position 10, everyone is in position 1. Because everyone experiences in that mood of service. And this is establishing the importance of serving devotees. Right? Because when we serve the devotees, then they are experiencing something very high. They're very exalted. But by serving them, we get that same perfection. Not that we become them. We don't want to be them. We can't think of that. That is, we want to serve them. But we get that same perfection. In a purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada writes, if one serves the spiritual master very sincerely and very seriously, one gets the disciples, he talks about the disciples of the spiritual master, if they serve very carefully, very intensely, nicely, they get the same perfection in serving the spiritual master that the spiritual master does in guiding the disciples. Though they're not qualified, because they're serving that person who is qualified, they get carried along. And even the Goswamis are showing this by their personal example. Like we see Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, explaining this, that even in the spiritual abode, in the eternal realm, we can see this happening. When to avoid these exchanges? So we should strive to have these exchanges with the devotees of the Lord, which means serving them, prasadam, etc. When to avoid these exchanges? Food prepared by materialistic minded persons. revealing our mind to Mayavadis or materialistic minded persons, because it could hurt our spiritual life. But what advice could we get from these sorts of people? So these are times to avoid them, and we avoid these things. But at the end, we have this question: well, but don't we interact and speak and discuss confidential financial matters? Let's say if we work in a finance firm with materialistic persons, yes, for functional things, we can get advice. So from a plumber who is a devotee or not a devotee, either way, we can get plumbing advice, even more so than an advanced devotee. A plumber may give better advice on plumbing. An accountant may give nice advice on finances. But things that are about our life, our spiritual life, those things we share with devotees. But we can use the talents, or you could say employ the talents and advice on material matters from materialistic persons in Krishna service. Okay, text 5. Text 4 was very deep. As you see, the whole Krishna consciousness movement was based on it, so spent a little extra time on it. This is actually a very, each one of these verses is too deep. Right? It's hard to go through them fast. This one also very deep one. Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasti chet pranatibhischa bhajantamisham shushushaya bhajana vigyamananyamanya nindadishunya hridamipsita sangalabdhya. One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation, diksha, and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So here, 3 levels of devotees are being described. The new devotee who is just starting to chant the holy name of Krishna. Anyone who chants the holy name of Krishna is a devotee, but they haven't done so systematically. So they are in the initial stage, in the Kanishta stage. And then one should offer humble obeisances to someone who has taken the formal commitment of Diksha and is engaged in worshipping the deity. So Diksha in previous times meant second initiation. So he's referring here to someone who has first and second initiation. And they're engaged in worshipping the deity. And finally, one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee, who's not only has all the stripes, but is actually advanced through their undeviated devotional service. And how do you recognize such a devotee? They're completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So sometimes we feel we are very advanced, and that's why we criticize those who are not advanced, who we think are not advanced. But the very fact that we're criticizing shows that we are not advanced. So how can we identify an advanced devotee? They have no interest in criticizing others. So if we want to be advanced, we must give up the propensity, not just that we criticize others. We have no interest, we have no propensity to criticize others. What a wonderful world it would be, right? Where no one criticizes one another. And that is the spiritual world. Not criticizing others doesn't mean that we don't do the right thing or say the right thing. That is not criticism. That is, in fact, avoiding criticism. If we hear criticism, if we hear offense, or we see offense and we don't do something, then that can be an offense. But criticizing means what we do, most of the time. People say, well, what about the exceptions? Yes, yes, yes. But the thing is that if we avoid criticizing others, then those few times when we need to say something, people will listen to us because we're devoid of the propensity to criticize others. There's different levels of devotees. How many different definitions of beginner, intermediate, and advanced are there in the verse and the purport? So in this verse, we see three different definitions, not definitions, or we see the definitions for the three different levels of devotees. In the purport, Prabhupada gives more definitions. In other words, he gives more ways in which to identify the three levels of devotees. And that's what we'll see in tables. You have the time to read through the verse. Right now, we will just cover the main points. A beginner, by one definition, may not be a beginner by another definition. Just like an adolescent may be at different levels of maturity, emotionally, intellectually, socially, and physically. Right? So when we say someone is mature, they're not mature in just one way, emotionally, intellectually, socially, and physically. So someone may be emotionally very mature, but maybe physically not so mature, right? Like we have some children on the call here, and they are spiritually and emotionally more mature than other kids, though physically they're still little, right? So in the same way, someone, for example, may not be second initiated because maybe their spiritual master is very slow in giving initiation due to an overload of disciples. But they've been in the movement 20 years. So we can't say, well, just because they don't have Brahman initiation, they're not a Madhyam Adhikari, they're still Kanishta. No, because that's a particular situation, but in other ways they've shown great maturity. So here are the ways in which these levels are described. The beginner stage, a neophyte who has received the Harinam initiation from the spiritual master and is trying to chant the holy name of Krishna. So again, this is a big topic. In previous times, the Harinam initiation was given more easily. And the second initiation was given it was more difficult to receive it. It wasn't given so easily. What Srila Prabhupada did is he raised the standard for first initiation, seeing the audience. Because previously people were pious, like when you were preaching in India, everyone was following the four regulated principles. The people who were coming to chant, you didn't have to worry, are they smoking, are they not, So Prabhupada distributed this all over the world, and including India now, which has fallen so much. He had to make sure that they are up to standard. So before, it was very easy to get Harinam Diksha. Basically, when you started chanting, you would get Harinam Diksha. So now that the definition of Diksha or the requirement has changed, it may be a neophyte maybe from the time that one is seeking initiation from the spiritual master, right? When it started chanting the holy name, has gotten the blessings, the shelter of a spiritual master. So again, this can be a little fluid. And so a neophyte is one who's basically started chanting the holy name of the Lord regularly. How to interact with them? One should respect such a person within his mind as a Kanishta Vaishnava. Intermediate, a Madhyam Adhikari has received spiritual initiation from the spiritual master and has been fully engaged by him in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So here's, not just chanting, but the whole senses, mind, body, words are absorbed in the service of Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation diksha and is engaged in worshipping the deity. In the advanced stages, an Uttamadhikari is not interested in blaspheming others. His heart is completely clean, and he has attained the realized state of unalloyed Krishna consciousness. So if we are still interested in blaspheming anyone, even one devotee, then we cannot be on the Uttama stage. Right? Sometimes, like myself, all the devotees I really love, but this one devotee I don't like. But if we're thinking in that way, then that is blasphemy, right? We can't think, I don't like this devotee. No, if there's a problem, we can speak up, but then we have to appreciate that person as a devotee. So their heart is completely clean, and thus they've attained the unalloyed state of Krishna consciousness. According to Srila Rupa Goswami, the association and service of such a Mahabhagavat or perfect devotee are most desirable. And the people, Prabhupada says, the devotees that we do not like, we will meet them at the time of our death. So if we are thinking negatively, then at the time of our death, they will come in our mind. Krishna will not come in our mind. And so that's why better to resolve in our mind, clean our mind of any animosity from them, develop affection for them, so that at the end of our life, Krishna appears in our thoughts. You see, we're only doing ourselves a disservice, because if we're thinking about someone, especially if we think negatively about them, you'll notice we always think about them constantly. It's like, going on. Then we'll be thinking about them always. If we're thinking about them, then Krishna says, Antakale chamameva smaran muktva kalevaram. Then at the end of the time, our smaran will be them, because we've cultivated that over the years of our Krishna consciousness. I don't like this devotee. I don't like this devotee. So we're cultivating not Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vendiyor. We're not cultivating, focusing our mind on Krishna, but we've been cultivating, focusing our mind on the devotee or devotees that we don't like. So at the end of the life, they will come in our thoughts. So because we're very minute living entities, we can't make it with everyone, right? We may not be able to become their closest friend and well-wisher. Well, we are their well-wisher always, but we're not their closest, confidants. But we don't have to keep them in our mind, right? We may not be able to become close to every devotee, but we need to think about Krishna as most important. Krishna should take the most space in our mind. And that happens when we are hearing and chanting and reading about Krishna. Then Krishna overtakes our mind. Now, here's a further explanation on the levels of devotees. This is very important for all of us, because when we come to the movement, we're sometimes shocked that devotees do wrong things, and then that shakes our faith. But rather than being shocked, Prabhupada here is explaining that we can just understand that they're on different levels. And we must know this, that when we come to Krishna consciousness, not all devotees are on the same level. So we cannot take inspiration or guidance or follow the example of every devotee. We must find the advanced devotees or identify. Someone is actually interested in Krishna consciousness and wants to be initiated. We accept him as a disciple for the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. This is for the beginner devotees. When a neophyte devotee is actually initiated and engaged in devotional service by the orders of the spiritual master, he should be accepted immediately as a bona fide Vaishnava. Out of many such devotees, out of many such Vaishnavas, one may be found to be very seriously engaged in the service of the Lord and strictly following all the regulated principles, chanting the prescribed number of rounds on japa beads, and always thinking of how to expand the Krishna consciousness movement. Such a Vaishnava should be accepted as an Uttamadhikari, a highly advanced devotee. And they have, Prabhupada long, so I condensed it. They have the ability to convert many fallen souls to Vaishnavism. So, if we want to be an advanced devotee, we have to be free from the tendency to criticize others. But how do we get there? This is what Prabhupada says. It's not just that. That person should be strictly following the regulated principles. They should be seriously engaged in the service of the Lord. They're chanting the prescribed number of rounds. And then always thinking how to expand the Krishna consciousness movement. So if we want to become advanced devotee, we should imitate them, but always thinking, how can I preach more? How can I expand this movement? What more do I have to employ in the service of Krishna? This is the quality we see in advanced devotees. A devotee was describing about Tamal Krishna Goswami, that he was always, whenever you spoke with him, he always had these amazing plans of how to expand Krishna consciousness all over the world to the next level. And, his Radha Damodar party, this, that, he was thinking in this way. Prabhupada's meditation was how to fulfill the instruction of his spiritual master and take Krishna consciousness all over the world, right? His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj, he was continuously traveling, preaching and building newer and newer temples. All these great Vaishnavas, we find they're doing so much. Why? Because they're always absorbed in thinking how to expand this movement. And not just that, but then due to their effort and their absorption, Krishna gives them the ability, he gives them the gift to convert many fallen souls to Vaishnavism. Just by their presence and their association, people change and they become spiritually elevated. So here's yet now another definition. The beginner devotee, again, these are directly drawn from purports. A person who is very faithfully engaged in worshiping the deity in the temple, but who does not know how to behave towards devotees or people in general. So in the last definition, we had said that a Madhyamadikari is someone who's engaged in worshiping the deity. So all of those of us who are pujaris may have felt very nice. See, I am serving the deity, so I am at least a Madhyamadikari devotee. But then Prabhupada says, but no, if someone is worshiping the deity, but is not affectionate or does not deal nicely with the devotees, then they're actually a neophyte devotee. Because they're seeing God, they're seeing the Lord, but they're not appreciating what is dear to the Lord, which is his devotees. So that's the beginner stage. And we see that many people like this, they worship, Christ, Krishna, Allah, they worship God, but then they have no mercy for living beings. In the name of God, they go and they even kill others. So that's a very neophyte understanding, appreciation of God, that God is there and I am God's servant. But God's creation doesn't matter, right? So those are neophyte devotees. They're devotees because they're worshiping God. We're serving God, we're spreading our religion, but no realization. So that's Ganishta. Intermediate, a devotee who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the highest object of love, makes friends with the Lord's devotees, is merciful to the ignorant, and avoids those who are envious by nature. This is quoted in NOI 5 in the purport. One second. And the most advanced devotee sees within everything the soul of all souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he sees systematically everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and understands that everything that exists is eternally situated within the Lord. So a person who's more advanced on the intermediate stage, they say, look, I want to make friends with the devotees because these are dear to the Lord. So I should make friends with them. And he doesn't fight with them. He avoids the ignorant, the envious. Those who are envious of God or envious of you, just ignore them, avoid them. And they're merciful to the ignorant, right? They're helping in the preaching movement. See, in each one of these, there's so much to say, but we have to keep moving on. So, and the advanced devotee, they see every soul as equally dear to Krishna, because Krishna, they actually are seeing Krishna in their heart. And so they're seeing, wow, Krishna's in this person's heart. So they must be a devotee. They are a devotee. They see the eternal spiritual nature of that soul. And thus, he sees everything in relation to Krishna. He relates with everyone equally. One whose faith is soft and pliable is called a neophyte devotee. So now the three divisions are given on the basis of faith. If the faith is soft and pliable, one is a neophyte devotee. But by gradually following the process, he will rise to the platform of a first-class devotee. And what's the second stage? A person whose conclusive knowledge of Shastra is not very strong, but who has developed firm faith in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and who is also undeterred in the execution of his prescribed devotional service. So, an intermediate devotee is someone who is fully convinced themselves, Prabhupada says. He has unshakable faith themselves, but because their knowledge of Shastra is not so strong, and because it's not so mature, they're unable to convert others. They're unable to instill that faith in others so much. They are doing, but not so much. Most of us, again, come in the intermediate stage. We are faithful ourselves, but we cannot give Krishna bhakti to others. We give them Prabhupada's book, because Prabhupada then gives it to them. The advanced devotee is one who is expert in logic, argument, and the revealed scriptures, and who has firm faith in Krishna. He is classified as a topmost devotee. He can deliver the whole world. So one says, okay, so a learned person, that person can deliver the whole world? No. So the one who has understood the revealed scriptures are revealed to them, and they have firm faith in Krishna that's unshakable, they can deliver the whole world. So someone like Prabhupada, I mean, his knowledge and realization was the topmost. And now we see devotees who are very strictly following are following in the footsteps of Prabhupada, and their impact is without, it's not, it doesn't make material sense. It's so great. So that is due to their qualification. And finally, one who is interested in chanting the holy name of Krishna, or who by practice likes to chant the names of Krishna, is a beginner devotee. Again, the definition given on the basis of chanting. Intermediate, one who chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra offenselessly, carefully avoiding the 10 offenses. When one fully engages in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, he gradually realizes his own spiritual identity. So one who is chanting offensively is a beginner. One who is endeavoring to chant offenselessly, and thus chanting almost offenselessly, is an intermediate devotee. And in advanced devotees, they understand there's no difference between the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself. When they chant, they're actually seeing Krishna. They're actually experiencing Krishna in the chanting. That is advanced chanting. When a person realizes himself to be an eternal servitor of Krishna, he loses interest in everything but Krishna's service, always thinking of Krishna, devising means by which to spread the holy name of Krishna. He understands that his only business is in spreading the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. So advanced devotee is not only chanting the holy name themselves, but is chanting to deliver the whole world. They're chanting to share Krishna's name with others. An advanced devotee is someone who's sharing the holy name with others also. So someone may see, well, someone will say that, uh, this person is not chanting. They are engaged in organizing this festival, and they are setting up stage and speakers, or they're cooking prasadam, and so they are not advanced. No, they're advanced because they are serving the holy name by facilitating the spread of the holy name. If you have a holy name festival, then so many people listen to the holy name. So by their facilitation of that, they are engaging, they're in the business of spreading the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. So that's why chanting of the holy name doesn't just mean the chanting. The devotees who are serving in this movement, they're also chanting. I mean, they must chant also their rounds, but Prabhupada, for example, when he was traveling on airplanes, he was also chanting. He was always chanting, but even his activities that were not directly, you could say, chanting, like climbing stairs, it's all chanting because it's all for the spreading of the chanting. One of our friends, a famous English musician, Prabhupada writes, has become attracted to chanting the holy names of Krishna. And even in his records, he has several times mentioned the holy name of Krishna. At his home, he offers respect to pictures of Krishna and also to the preachers of Krishna consciousness. In all regards, he has a very high estimation for Krishna's name and Krishna's activities. Therefore, we offer respects to him without reservation, for we are actually seeing that this gentleman is advancing gradually in Krishna consciousness. Such a person should always be shown respect. The conclusion is that anyone who is trying to advance in Krishna consciousness by regularly chanting the holy name should always be respected by Vaishnavas. On the other hand, we have witnessed that some of our contemporaries who are supposed to be great preachers have gradually fallen into the material conception of life because they have failed to chant the holy name of the Lord. So in the previous slide, we read how engaging in this Krishna consciousness movement and spreading it is also chanting. However, if we are engaged in that, but we ourselves forget to chant, if we fail to complete our 16 rounds, if we are not absorbed in chanting or not trying to develop the taste of chanting ourselves, we will fall into the material conception. We will preach, but not in the right consciousness, and thus we will fall. And here Prabhupada is saying, he's speaking of an English musician. Anyone want to guess who that is?
George Harrison, like the Beatles.
Yes, George Harrison. And Prabhupada here is calling him what? A neophyte devotee, Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, Uttam Adhikari.
Ganesh.
Well, he's saying such a person should always be shown respect.
Samadhikari.
Yeah.
Intermediate.
Intermediate, yes. Intermediate and maybe advanced. Because Prabhupada actually was very pleased with him. It said, literally, because of his records, maybe more than 100 million people have heard the holy name. The Beatles, even to this day, you go to airports. It was just like 1 or 2 months ago, and the record, My Sweet Lord, was playing. And I was listening to the airport. This is like, I think it was O'Hare Airport, and this like Hare Krishna is going on, and all the airport people are listening to it. Tens of thousands of people joined Krishna consciousness during Prabhupada's time because of George Harrison. He popularized the Hare Krishna movement. So Prabhupada is so pleased with him. And only an advanced devotee can spread the holy name, right? Who's been empowered by a devotee. So Prabhupada empowered him somehow or the other. He was very fortunate, and by Prabhupada's empowerment, he became an advanced devotee. And there's one instance where he comes to Prabhupada for initiation. So he said, well, George Harrison, I mean, he was a karmi, he never got, where's his shikha and where's his. So he comes to Prabhupada for initiation. Um, um, and he says, please, give me. And Prabhupada says, you are already Hari's son, Harrison, Hari's son. So there's no need. I will not, this is intimate thing that devotees have told. He says, I will not give you externally initiation because that will affect your preaching. So he was so, I mean, this is kind of, we cannot imitate this. This is like he's on the world level, right? The Beatles at that time were the number one music band all over the world, and they probably have continued to be kind of there. If there's one band that had a long-term, uh, very long-term reputation around the world, it was the Beatles, and George Harrison was very much the head of it. So he said, externally, if I give you, then people, I mean, he was such a public figure, in the masses, people would have, maybe left, kind of like turned away, said, okay, so he had to keep that persona that he was, like, but through his songs, not just My Sweet Lord, The Sun is Rising was another one in which he directly talks about Krishna. The sun refers to Krishna. There's also the holy name. I think in that one there's a full mantra. Many of his songs that became number one hits around the world were that. So Prabhupada gave him initiation, but in a private way. So he was also an initiated devotee. In this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami advises the devotee to be intelligent enough to distinguish between the Kanishtadhikari, Madhyamadhikari, and Uttamadhikari. The devotee should also know his own position and should not try to imitate a devotee situated on a higher platform. So it's also wrong for us to imitate an Uttamadhikari devotee. We must know where we're at. At the same time, we must strive to keep moving forward, right? We should not think that, oh, I'm just fallen and so I'll stay fallen. That's not the goal. We must strive. And for that, we must seek out advanced association. Not just that we're associating and, playing games with friends. That's okay. But if we want to come to Uttamadhikari level, we must seek out this association because we must strive that level, and striving means seeking out association, which means hearing from advanced devotees so that we can also become advanced. The way to become advanced is to associate with those who are advanced, which means to seek out their association, like many of you are doing. You attend different seminars, classes, to move your consciousness. We have to move it to a higher level. And how do we elevate ourselves? That is described in the next verse, which we will do next time. And that is the association part. Then Rupa Goswami teaches us how do we associate, right? So he's practically telling us how do we elevate ourselves by associating, and how do we have to do that is the next verse. So we did 2 verses this time. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all 3. I'll just take maybe one question and then we will end 1 or 2 questions because I have to leave at like 8:27. Okay, so I see here, first question was by Rashmi Mataji, so we'll just have your question.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. There was one term that you used when we spoke about the, I believe it was the 4th verse. You said karmic vasana, like when we share a meal with others. What does that mean? I'm not, what does vasana mean?
Yes, Vasana means the proclivities, kind of the samskaras that we bring from our past life or that we develop in this life. So if we develop the vasana of criticism, then there's a chance, that's I think the context I was mentioning this in, then there's a chance that at the end of our life, those same thoughts will go through our mind. We'll still be feeling that resentment in our mind. So those are the vasanas that we carry. Sometimes people bring very good vasanas, like they're just naturally inclined towards spiritual life. Sometimes people bring negative vasanas. So
And so when, sorry,
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, so when we share a meal,
Mm.
so how does that affect our, I mean, the connection between the karmic vasanas? Oh, so it would just be like Sangha because we are okay. So their vasanas would affect us. Is that the way to understand that?
Yes. So if we eat the prasad cooked by a materialist, then their vasanas enter into our consciousness, right? So vasanas are very subtle. They're connected with the mind, and the mind can enter the food. I mean, that subtle consciousness enters into the food. So yes, we can pick up on other people's vasanas by associating with them.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Very nice. Okay, so do we have Hari Priya here today? We don't. Okay, maybe after Sadhu Sangha, she was tired. Okay, so I'm very happy that actually we ended on time. So we'll end now, and next time we will continue. So please make sure to read the purports for these verses and do the homework, and we'll meet next week, same time. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna
Thank you so much.
Prabhuji, Ram Vishnu
Hare
Pateri.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Pranam,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Prabhu.
Thank you so much for the beautiful class. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yep.
Prabhuji. Thank you for the class. Hare Krishna.